Mi ćemo gledati malo dole da pripremimo.
Kako ste? Pomaže Bog i dobro jutro. Christ in our midst. Good morning. Hristos je među nas. Dobrodošli na čas crkvene škole za nedjelju Zakeju. Welcome to our virtual church school for the Sunday of Zacchaeus. Let us pray to the Lord. U ime Otca i Sina i Svetoga Duha. Oče naš, koji si na nebesima, da se sveti na Tvoje, da dođe carstvo Tvoje, da bude volja Tvoja na zemlji kao na nebu. Hleb naš nasušni daj nam danas i oprosti nam dugove naše, kao što mi oproštamo dužnicima svojim. I ne uvede nas u iskušenje, ne izbavi nas od zlog. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Gospode Isuse, Hriste Bože naš, blagoslovi ovih učitelja, ovih koji se uče sa ovim učenjem da služi na Tvoje proslavljenje, na njihovo spasenje i na izbavljenje, sve što postoji. Amin.
Good morning, Adorito. Welcome to our virtual church school. Today we have our annual St. Salva's Day, Sveti Salva program and Salva celebration. St. Salva, who is the patron saint of church schools, a patron saint of the children, who is a mentor and someone to look up to. And as we begin actually the pre-Lenten season, as today is Zacchaeus Sunday already, we look at Zacchaeus, who was by no means a virtuous man, a tax collector, a man who would be considered a sinner, a man who stole from people and took more than what that he was actually worthy of taking. So by no means was Zacchaeus a person who could be admired. But Zacchaeus had a desire. Zacchaeus had a desire to see Christ, to get to know who Christ was. He had a desire that many other people who claimed to be pious, who claimed to be holy, did not possess in their life. And Zacchaeus climbed over hoops and mounds to climb up into the fig tree so that he may see and get a glimpse of Christ. He was a small man, a man short in stature. Not only a man short in stature physically, but short in stature spiritually. A person is not as big or great as their physical body, but as big and great as they are in their hearts, in their spiritual growth, and in their spiritual depth. And that is precisely when we look at Zacchaeus, and who had the desire to be someone different, to be someone who did not covet money, who did not covet wealth and riches, but rather sought to seek God, to be close to God, and to know God, which others who were in the temple were not doing. They were all about themselves. And there's a very familiar poem that many of you who did St. Salva's Day programs in the past, and many of you who do your St. Salva's Day recitatia in English are going to be very, very familiar with. And it is the poem is the poem is called Aratsko, and it is, who's knocking at this hour on this night so dark and scary, at the gates of the sleepy, silent, holy monastery. Peaceful dreams of monks at midnight, a cry pierced and they awoke. Great fathers opened the gate, a voice begged, the silence of the night broke. My soul seeks enlightenment, my body needs repose. I am sleepy and exhausted, I am weak, so weak, God knows. But so is the will which he made me, to come to you and leave my kingdom, to dedicate my life to my people, to my country, and to freedom. I have abandoned court and crown, throne and scepter make me weary. I have come to seek enlightenment at this holy, humble monastery. I beg you to accept me as your brother. I'll renounce my crown, wealth, and glory if I can enter into your holy monastery. The old monk embraced the youngster. On his forehead a kiss he planted. We accept you, our dear child. Your wish has been granted. The throne that had awaited him, he left it all and went away. To the monastery on Mount Athos, to live, to hide, to seek enlightenment, to pray. We know this light can never be hidden. St. Salva's glory shines forever. St. Salva's glory shines bright and will shine forever. So you have the words there. I have abandoned crown and glory to enter into the holy monastery. Saint Salva, born Ratko Nemanjić into the Stefan Nemanjić dynasty, was going to be the heir to the throne. He would have been king of Serbia. He would have had power. He would have had control. He would have had control over nations, over people. He would have been crowned with riches and jewels. But his parents were very pious. And he was well aware of the faith. And he enjoyed very much. His father, Stefan Nemanjić, gave much money to build churches, to build monasteries. And he was very much there when the monks would come. And they would come asking for funding, asking for support for Mount Athos, for the Holy Mountain, as it was known. So he could have had all this. He could have had the wealth. He could have had the glory. But he chose that was not his. That is not what he wanted. He was a humble man. He sought refuge in this humble monastery. And when you see that personality, that virtue blossoming forth in someone, that is what we are called to be as Christians, as Orthodox Christians, and as a Serbian people. If we are going to call Saint Salva our saint, our someone to look up to, our mentor, someone who we want to exemplify our life as, then we must embody the virtues that Saint Salva embodied. We see as he leaves, he leaves the kingdom and he goes by horseback to the holy mountain and begs the monks to let him in. They accept him at the holy mountain, and there he's going to dedicate his life to prayer and to fasting and to being an example for others, including his own parents, who in years down the road, King Stefan Nemanjić abdicates the throne, renounces everything, and with Saint Salva's mother, Anna, take on the monastic vocation as well. His father building Studenica. So you have someone who could have had power and riches, but instead turned to be the example to lead his own family, his own mother and father into the service of God, into prayer, into a holy life. And we can all be that example. If we use Saint Salva and we sing praises to Saint Salva, that our life must be modeled after the life of Saint Salva. We can't say that we're singing praises to Saint Salva and glorifying him, but go out and act as his brothers, Vukan and Stefan. Vukan, who was very power hungry, who was the opposite of Zacchaeus, who wanted very much to just rule, even though the kingdom was given over to Stefan. Vukan did everything in his power to destroy it, to go to war, to battle, to destroy Serbian homes, and for his love of power and love of money, not for his love of the people of Serbia, and not because he wanted to be in the kingdom, to rule the people, to guide them, and to spiritually guide them, and to help them grow. He wanted it for the power and the glory. So when we see this difference in personality traits, in virtues within one household, and we see the model, the role model that Saint Salva is for all people, not just the Serbian people, but all Orthodox people. And it can be for all people if we can embrace and if we can live our lives as that example as Saint Salva did to his parents, where they abdicated the throne and they themselves joined in the monastic vocation, then we can make a difference. It may not make a difference in the entire world, but we can make a difference in one life or several lives by being that example to others. So once Saint Sava became a monastic, he set off to tell, he set servants back to tell his family that he had left the throne behind, and he was going to be, he was no longer Ratsko. He had taken on, and when you become a monastic, you take on a monastic name, you took on the name Sava. And of course his parents were disappointed. They sent their royal people to Royal Army to try to get him off of Monarchos, but there was nothing that they could possibly do that would convince him otherwise. He knew that's where his heart was. He knew where he wanted his service to be. He knew where he could be the most help to the Serbian people, and that is precisely what he did. He built churches. He helped build churches. He helped bring the Serbian people who were not united, who were not all Christians, who were not all focused only on God. He brought the faith to the people. So when we have Saint Sava as an example, we're not just looking to grow in our heritage, which we want to keep. That is why we keep the memory of Saint Sava, and why we do our pasman and our tributes and our poems. But we must always keep the heritage and the faith together. Saint Sava did not separate his Serbian heritage from the faith. His faith was the heritage. He based his entire life centered around God. And God was everywhere present in his life. And that is how we need to strive to be in our lives, regardless of our ages. If we're 4, 5, 6, or into our teens or 20s or young adulthood, we must always remember that example of Saint Sava. After his father's death, he went back to Serbia, and there he was called back to ease the tensions that were caused by the feuding of his two brothers, Vukan, who was the elder, and Stefan, who was the one who had the reign of the throne. And he was so influential that he was able to bring peace. And he didn't do it by force. He didn't do it by violence. He did it by words. And when he approached them, he said to them and began to talk to Vukan that what he is doing is wrong. And Vukan responds, "I am sorry for the bloodshed, for the suffering of our people, but it's not my fault. Stefan should have abdicated the throne to me, and there would never have been a war. I am the oldest son. The throne rightfully belongs to me." So when you see that attitude, you see the I, you see the me, you see it's all about I, Samo 7. And that is one of the main roots, the main causes of all the tension, all the dissension, of the animosity between families, between peers, between teachers and students, between leaders and of managers of a company and their needs. It is the I. It is that somebody always wants to be in power. Somebody always wants to be right. Somebody never wants to say they're sorry. Never. And we're going into the pre-Lenten period. It's going to be focusing on the episteme. Please forgive me. And those are not the easiest words to say. But Zacchaeus found it in his heart to say, "Forgive me." And he made a promise. He made a commitment. He made that 360-degree turn, that he changed completely. He went back another route. We talked about the Magi going back another route. They changed their life. They changed their way of thinking. Zacchaeus did the exact same thing. He changed his way of thinking. And when we look at Vukan, we hear the words that are coming out of his mouth as being I-centered. It's all about me. I am the one who's right. It's not my fault. That is one of the reasons why it's hard to apologize. You want to push the blame. You push the blame on somebody else. It's not my fault. I only did it because they asked me to, or they made me do it. And that is where we need to have a strong faith. And we see the response back from Saint Salva. But it was the wish and the order of our Father that Stephen would inherit the throne. How can you to disobey our Father? He has given you the whole province to rule. Yes, says Vulcan, but you are the great Zulpan. You are the provincial ruler. And now I am not only the great Zulpan, but I am the king. And Stephen says, but you have not been crowned king. And Vulcan says, but I've been promised it. I've been promised it by other authorities that I will be made king. He doesn't want to back down. It is the stubbornness. It is the stubbornness that we see in Vulcan. It's the stubbornness that we have sometimes in us. That we don't want to back down. We feel that we are right. We feel that it has to be our way. And that is where, if you look at the reading of Zacchaeus realized he was wrong. One of the biggest traits, one of the first things you have to do for repentance is to realize that there is a wrong. Obviously, Wolfgang was having a very hard time dealing with the fact that he was not in the right. And what is the price of your crown? Sava asked his brother. Our Serbian land is devastated. The Serbian homes are destroyed. Thousands of Serbs have been killed. And Vulcan again says, but it was Stefan's fault. He never wanted to abdicate the throne. And Sava replies, are you ready to give up the faith of your fathers, of our own father, of our own venerable Simeon? Are you ready to accept a Latin heresy and to force all the Serbian people to do the same? Vulcan was going to go under the Catholic, under the Pope, to be given the crown, to be given authority. Who's going to sell the people? Who's going to sell the souls of an entire homeland of people? The Pope is the head of the Latin Church, and they are a Church of Christ. And Sava tells them that they are not the Protestant Church. Do not talk blasphemy. Christ is the head of our church, and the Holy Orthodox Church is the true Church of Christ. And they continue the conversation, and Sava doesn't get angry. Sava doesn't become violent. He just continues to try to reason, to try to bring a peace. And that is the nature that he was. He was a peacemaker. He was one who loved peace. He was one who loved his country, loved his people, who didn't want to see all the work that he and his father had done to build monasteries, to bring people to the faith, to be destroyed. He cared about others. So he gets Stefan to please and to ask Vulcan to please make peace. And Vulcan still does not want to back down. And Sava keeps trying to convince him. And Sava then tells him, the way that you will get the throne will be disobeying your father's will and the will of God. You are trampling on the laws of your country. You raise your hand and fight against your own brother, just as Cain did. And you will bring foreigners in to rule your own people. You will be guilty of suffering at the death of your own Serbian people. And Sava tells him straight out, it is power you want, isn't it? That is all. You are not interested in how you will get it or how you will grab it, but you know that is what you want. But how long will you really enjoy something that you have not, are rightfully not entitled to? And that is when you strive, and you strive to get more and you want more in your life. It's like the farmer who built bigger storehouses instead of giving to the poor. Because he wanted to keep it all for himself. It is the lust of power, the lust of money. And as a society, we are geared to try to have people accept that that's the right way. But we must always look at the humility of the humbleness in the life of Saint Sava. And he gets Stefan to try to beg him to stop as well. Let's make peace. As far as I'm concerned, the throne is only a cross to bear. I will gladly abdicate it to you. Because so the second of Brooklyn wants to know, well, why won't you just do that? Because it will not bring peace and happiness, not to you and not to your people. They do not accept you. They know that you are power hungry. And so this conversation goes on for a while, and then Stefan says, I am willing to make peace. And Brooklyn finally rescinds and says, all right, I promise I will not fight against you, my brother Stefan. And Stefan then thanks Saint Sava, for helping make peace, not only to the family, but to the nation as well. And that is going to say that is, as Saint Sava attributes this ability to do this, not of his own, but of God. I could not have helped you, he said, if God had not helped me. Our saintly Father Simeon must have prayed hard for us and for our people, and God has heard us and his prayers. I ask you, let's go to church, and there at the tomb of Saint Simeon, in the presence of his relics, that the two of you promise under oath to never fight again. And the two brothers agreed to go. And that is to say, that is twice, many times though, in Saint Sava's life, but twice that really stand out, where Saint Sava himself was an example of peacemaker, of how we should live. And he continues to live on as an example to all children of all of Orthodox faith, if we embrace the teachings and the values and the virtues of Saint Sava. And we see this exemplified, how we will see these, the virtues of humility, peacemaker, of patience, love, kindness, gentleness, of saying you're sorry, change, repentance, throughout the coming Lenten season again of Great Lent. And let's prepare ourselves. Let's prepare ourselves by, as we stand today into our Pasamaretsa Katsia to Saint Sava, remember, as we say those praises, to think of the life that Saint Sava lived and the changes he made to not only his family, but to the Serbian people, but to the world as centuries as time passes, and will continue to do so as long as we as children carry on the tradition. We're going to have a program today after the blessing of the Sveti Nikola. We will have a brief run through of the program. Most of you are very familiar with the music, but we'll have a brief run through of the program in lieu of church school. We come back into the church for the blessing of the kolach, and then go right into the children's program. Afterwards, we will also have a very nice luncheon, which was prepared by our Kolosistana and sponsored by our Kumavi for St. Sava's Day this year, the Georgic family, Dragomir, Bilina, Jovan, and Angelia. We thank them very much. And we look forward to having a great St. Sava's Day. Just wait for St. Father and the say closing prayer for us.
It is true, and it's probably blessed to help us of our blessed most dear, the Mother of our God, and our humble and shared and beyond the family of voice, and the spirit and God, and purity, goodness, with the God, Lord, the faith, the trust, and be mankind. God is with us, through his grace and bounty, so from mankind, always now and ever, and to ages.
Amen. Looking forward to seeing also.